Blessings in Jesus' name, amen. So, this video I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Ozanam House Hostel in Wexford and others like it around the country, and what they actually are, as opposed to what they claim to be. To give you a perfect example, in Wexford town, the man in charge of the emergency housing unit, the guy you'll speak to face there in Wexford County Council offices, when I was dealing with him, he was denying me access to the housing department, and he would go between me and them. Then, when I asked him any questions that I would ask of them, he said, "I don't know, I'm not them." So do you see how he was a barrier to access any real long-term help, but was sort of funneling people into Ozanam House? Do you see how he was like a barrier to entry there? He was behaving as such. And then when I asked him, is Ozanam House the only emergency housing that they offer people? He was saying, that's all I have to offer you. So he wasn't saying that it's the only emergency housing that they can facilitate. They can facilitate hotel rooms for certain specific cases. And I am one such qualified case, because I can't eat the food that they serve in Ozanam House. Not only that, but the place is full of drugs, and I'm an ex-drug user, and it would be highly unwise for me to go in amidst the fumes. And there are plenty of fumes. I stayed one night in the emergency bed situation. I didn't have my own room or anything. I was sharing with two others. And at that time, I thought I was on the housing list because I hadn't been notified otherwise. Well, that's why I approached Ozanam House, because they say that that's a prerequisite to actually being qualified to use their facility. Yet they just flung their doors open to all of the people sleeping on the street because of the weather conditions. Unusual, isn't it? So, they were also telling me at one stage that the place was full when it wasn't, and there was available rooms in it. So, and they were telling me there was an available room eventually when there was another guy who had qualified for the housing list and was eligible for HAP, was sleeping in the crash bedroom. So they hadn't offered him a room even though it came available. But were sort of trying to put him off and treating him in an ill way. The point of this video is to expose what's really going on there between the state and this facility. The man who is now in the emergency housing unit in the council is and was directly involved with Ozanam House. Is in that he refers people still to it. He's kind of acting functionally as an agent for them, though he gets paid from the county council. So I got a letter from the county council saying that it is, I asked them for a specific letter to say that the Ozanam House is the only thing they offer men in my situation. They didn't give me that. They said that Ozanam House is what they offer people in my situation. So they might as well have not written it. They didn't say it's the only thing they offer people, so as not to incriminate themselves. Then, if you look at the Ozanam House situation, it used to be owned by an organisation called St. Vincent de Paul, and obviously the use of the word saint, there was Catholic ties there. And you have to understand, from a government who are trying to break the bonds of Christianity on the society, they want to start disassociating with Catholicism. Even though when it suits them, they'll say, we need permission from the nuns to build a hospital. When it suits their agenda, they claim Catholic Christian ties. When it doesn't suit their agenda, they want to be far from them. Sisters had a strictness to how they ran their institutions. And of course, if you want to take a place over as your drug hideout, you don't want the sisters around running the place strictly, keeping you to curfew and things of that nature. You want your buddies in the Freemasonic Lodge on reception to bat away the guards whenever they come and knocking, to search for you. So they claim to be a charity, and I read in the newspaper, it's a number of years now that DePaul have taken the reins there, so to speak. And they've been idling ever since, and I'll explain what I mean by that. They claim to have the necessary expertise in the sector. Yet, there's not a coat of paint on the wall. The bathroom and shower facilities, the room floor is collapsing. The radiators are rusting quite severely. The communal room, the communal area, is being used as a sort of a one-night crash place. The smoking room is sort of in the centre of the complex, a terrible idea. And it's sort of, all the windows are open to it, so the smoke wafts in, and they're using it for a place to do their marijuana. And I know for a fact that crack cocaine has been smoked in those facilities. I have it from other inhabitants and personal experience of it in the DePaul hostel in Waterford called Maguire House. I saw the crack cocaine paraphernalia. So there are certainly Class A drugs being smoked and used in those facilities. There's marijuana being used in those facilities. Heavy marijuana use. Then, what do? They offer the inhabitants €20 extra a week for cleaning the place, like mopping the floor, cleaning around, who knows. All that €20 will do is give them an extra €20 for an extra score of hash, so they can smoke their brains out in that little smoking area in the middle of the complex. There are men and women there. That shouldn't be the case. It's a men's hostel. It shouldn't be the case that there are women there smoking drugs with the men there, listening to the hip-hop music. Bob, bob, smokey, smoke. It's like a house party in Jamaica without the sun. So, they're secure as you like in there, knowing that nobody can just walk in and catch them smoking the weed. There's no way on this green earth that the receptionist can't smell that, when in the crash room, which is the opposite side of the building, the outer side of the building, the peripheral, towards the front and the entry, is stinking of it. And I mean stinking of it. They must be smoking it for hours, and potent amounts of it, in their joints. I called DePaul, the experts in the sector, and I asked them, can I directly access your facility? No, you have to go through the county council. What? So, I ask you, what expertise do they require to just tell them people to call the council? It's like if you go on the Simon Community website, you scroll down, list of people who might be able to help you, county council. So they're all funneling you and directing you back to the county council. These places in receipt of money for being charities. All they're doing is sending you back to the state. So where does the charity money go? And who's the charity? If you consider that the tenants are paying €80 a week, and these people are some of the people who are getting the least income in society. Some of them would only be on just over €100 a week. Perhaps, if they're young enough. So, they're being bashed into these places, crammed in. No chance of getting out of there anytime soon. It's supposed to be a short-term agreement until somebody can find accommodation. Now, I appreciate accommodation is lacking, but there are some people over there, I have it from the receptionist, over a year. Over a year they're staying in Ozanam House. Why would they leave? They can do their drugs, do a little bit of cleaning around the place once or twice a week maybe, get extra money for drugs, get all their food there, and lay about smoking hash. With women, why would they do anything different? If they're dealing in drugs, sure, they're making extra. And then they have the protection of the walls. So that it's become a stronghold hideout for drug dealers and drug addicts. No visitors allowed during COVID. Nobody able to come in and check on them. How would that be good? I saw guards sent away from the door and then somebody coming out and saying, "Oh, thanks. Now, you can draw the correlation if you want. That's what I heard. I was only there one night. It'd be highly coincidental if that was the only night that those words were heard. So, €80 by 30 rooms, assuming that they're full when they say they are, because we've seen that they're not. But €80. Why is the one who's supposed to be in receipt of charity paying €80 to the charity? Sure, a house share in a room somewhere is only €10, €20 more. Sure, they're nearly charging the going rate for a room. How are they a charity in any way? Because you get the bit of spuds and meat? That can't cost them a whole lot. When they're cooking in bulk and buying in bulk like that, that won't cost them a whole lot. Big pot of spuds, big pot of mince, job done. The rest is bread and cornflakes, tea and coffee, bit of jam. There's no great expense there in the area of food. Milk. And water's in the tap. Although I don't advise you to drink it. So, because it's full of chlorine and fluoride and the Lord knows what else. Didn't they only recently say, don't drink the water, there's bacteria in it? So, how often does that happen when they're not aware of it? So the point is that when somebody is claiming to be an expert in the sector, or section, then how does their deliberate, conscious, determined lack of getting involved require any expertise? When all they're doing is sending you to the council, who then put you through hoops, delay the process, ask you for information, claiming it's required by the legislation, when it's just not. Obscure things. Letter from this, letter from that. Oh, your bank details. They want to means test you again? Even though you've already been means tested and are on social welfare? They work with that department. They can pass information from one to the other. Yet, when you've been means tested by the social welfare, the council wants to means test you again, even though it's the same means test. That's an unnecessary delay and a mockery of your intelligence. As soon as you're on the dole, by default, you should be allowed in their doors immediately, without delay. Without delay. Emergency housing? Hold on till we means test you. Go and get 3 months bank statement. A letter from your work. A letter from there. A letter from there. As soon as you're on the dole, you should be allowed in the doors of the hostel. The county council are donating money. They actually have part investment, percentage of, ownership of, I would say, DePaul, Ireland. They invest in it. They donate into it. So they're getting more money on top of what they're charging the inhabitants. Large amounts of money on top of what they're charging the inhabitants. I'd say it's a long time since that place got a new set of radiators. They're rusting. The floor in the bathroom again is collapsing. There's one shower, one toilet, and the floor is collapsing. It's akin to an Instacabin. And the general upkeep of the place is run down. It's non-existent. So if they're claiming that the €80 coming from the inhabitants is for the upkeep of the premises and the facility, it's not. So that's €80 by 35 rooms is €2,800. Multiply that by 52 weeks in the year and you get 145,600. 145,600. 145,600 before donations. And they can't put a new set of radiators on the wall. And they're paying the inhabitants to clean the place. What expertise do DePaul require exactly? How are they not the ones in receipt of the charity themselves personally? If Ozanam House is earning from the inhabitants €145,600, why hasn't the place gotten a new floor in the bathroom where it's collapsing, new radiators on the wall, a coat of paint, maybe a new couch, sofa, some new mattresses? The kitchen is a decent facility, but the food they're putting out is next to prison food. It's no different. But yet you're charged €80 a week, which is €20 less than the going rate for a room in a house that has to meet living standards. When the facility of Ozanam House doesn't meet them, yet it's getting €2,800 a week donations that they claim are for the upkeep of the premises. Granted, there will be heating oil, can't be more than €2,000 a year. They're making €145,600. €145,600 just from the inhabitants. They get donations from the state. They get private donations. How is Ozanam House Hostel DePaul a not-for-profit organisation? How are they being charitable towards their inhabitants? They're offering a place for young men who can't afford to get their own house or can't find one, who are on drugs, a relatively comfortable place, a little bit up from a crack house, to do their drugs. Whilst other people who don't do drugs are consistently creating a footpath up to the county council to say, that's not habitable. You can't send somebody there. They're doing drugs there. And the man who's in the emergency unit in the Wexford County Council department used to work in Ozanam House and is playing agent to them, referring people like myself, I'm actually working and have been, and I'm still being left on the side of the street. Even though I call DePaul directly to find out, in theory, would they allow me in to that hostel? Now, even if they would, I wouldn't go because it's full of Class A drugs. I have a history of drug use and I want to steer clear of drugs. So they don't have anything for somebody who's working, who wants to stay away from drugs and drug users, so that they can get in out of the cold. I slept on the street last night. I was cold. I couldn't get warm for many hours. And they're all they can do is say, well, our doors are open, so it's on you. When the place is full of crack and hash. It's not on me. That is a shameful corruption in this society, orchestrated to make people who are in a bad situation in a worse situation. And while the people who claim to be a charity are profiting. What expertise is required by DePaul if they're only referring people to Ozanam House, the council? When you call them directly, and then they give you the whole politician spiel, kind of like, sort of like, kind of this section and kind of like, sort of specifically this. Gone. Who could understand that? That's politician talk to confuse you, so that you just go, okay. So, currently, the county council are investing in a criminal organisation claiming to be a charity. They're criminal because they're registered as a not-for-profit organisation, when clearly the Ozanam House is functioning as a very highly profitable business. And they're also lying, saying that that money is for the upkeep of the premises, when the premises isn't being upkept. €145,600 per year they earn from the inhabitants. How are they being charitable towards them? I think I've made the point. It's a stitch-up. And it's the same all across the country. They try, as they do, to hide the drug problem in the hostels. We're so concerned, there are people around, it's getting down to -1 and all come in out of the cold. What about the rest of the year? What about the drugs being used in your facility? How are you helping people if you're facilitating drug taking in your hostel? Where are your expertise required if you're not even aware of it? What's the point in telling the council if they won't tell DePaul that there's a drug problem in their facility? What's the point in telling the council if they'll just relay it to the next person coming in? Yeah, there are drugs being used. Yeah, you're not the only person to have told us that. Oh, I'm not the only person. That doesn't stand in your stead. That makes you look worse. You mean others are coming in saying the same thing? Many people. Oh, €2,800 a week. A week. That's what one of the inhabitants would need to get a house. €2,800 for a deposit in some cases, and first month's rent for a 2-bed house, because 1-beds are very limited. €145,600 before any donations or investments from the state. Where does it go? St. Vincent de Paul's charity shop? No, different business. By the way, St. Vincent de Paul charity shop gets all its stuff donated. So that's profitable business for them. Where's the charity? What do they contribute to charity? They are the charity. They're the ones in receipt of the charity. They're the ones that get the clothes left. Oh yeah, but we pass it on to the person who can't afford it. And you profit from it. Even if it's €2, that's €2 clear profit for you. How can you be not for profit? Not for profit. We're not intended to profit. Oh, so you don't mean non-profitable? That would be different. Not for profit doesn't exactly declare that, does it? They don't get taxed on donations. So your €80 to Ozanam House inhabitants is your donation to them. I wonder, do they have a mortgage on Ozanam House? They've owned that building a long time. What are the outgoings? The heating? The electricity? Oh, costs have doubled. Even if they're paying $4,000 a year on heating, they make €145,600 a year. Charity.